Good afternoon, and I am Reagan Boggs, and I am continuing my series, Things That I Wish I Knew. Today's topic is criticism and ACOA specifically. As you know, I do work with adult children of alcoholics in my coaching practice, and this one is very important. We see it in our work together very frequently. And ACOAs struggle with criticism, and it could be because of complex PTSD. I talk about that, or at least reference it, and borderline personality disorder. There are things that I will leave to the mental health professionals, and I'm not going to address criticism issues specifically related to those diagnoses in particular. Again, this is just me talking about things that I've worked on myself, things that I have helped folks work through them, in my coaching practice. And I think, there are a lot of things I could talk about, I guess, specifically related to criticism, but I want to focus on why we take it so hard, mainly. And why criticism seems to matter so much, and it can really shake us and knock us off our game for a few days, especially depending on who it is and where it's come from, because we put a lot of weight into other people in our lives, and some folks that we might get criticism from that it might not matter as much, and then others could be completely devastating depending on who that person is in our lives. So I'm going to dive right in, as I say, and do this in my haphazard way that I generally do. So I hope this is a benefit to you and you get some insight from it. The first thing that I'll talk about in relation to criticism is that, by definition, most folks who are adult children of alcoholics fall into the bucket of codependency. And in a nutshell, I'll just call that people pleasing. And it's very important to us that we are feeling valued by giving value to other people. And if someone rejects that, then we take it very personally. And that's unfortunate. And it's unfortunate that we do put so much weight in other people's opinions of us to find our own value. And this was talked about in my previous video somewhat. So I won't, if you want to listen to that video, then you can get a little more insight on how important our value is to us and where we go for finding our value outside of ourselves. But that is a big drawback to being a codependent, is we put a lot of power in the hands of the people around us. And if you are in a marriage with someone and you are codependent, then anything that they say or do is going to make you feel less than if you aren't getting your little pat on the head, unfortunately, for the effort that you are putting forth, because you wrap so much of your energy into that effort. And I don't think in a partnership that folks sometimes realize how devastating that can be when really everything that you do to keep your shit together sometimes takes so much effort. And I don't talk about my personal relationships a whole lot, but as a 20-something, newly married, coming out of being in a home with an alcoholic father, I thought I found someone who was fairly normal. But, in the first 4 or 5 years of that marriage, I found myself getting so resentful because I really felt like at times that I couldn't even buy a loaf of bread right. I would always get the one that had the air leak in it, and it would go stale in a week just because, that just wasn't a big deal to me. And then if he brought that up, then I was just like, he's just all he does is criticize. Or, because you feel like you're trying so hard, and eventually, although you may not even say anything about it then, and that's what kills us, is we will kind of listen, and we have like a little shelf that we put each little criticism on, and eventually we're carrying that on our shoulders, and we get very resentful of it. We may be criticized about how we keep our house, and we may be criticized by the way that we cook our food, or how we get up late, or how we have odd hours, and because we're a little quirky, right? And we don't have a normal backdrop, and we may have some little weird things that when someone sheds a lot of attention on that and a lot of light on that, we take it hard, because they are insecurities that we already have about ourselves. We already see that compared to a lot of other people, that our behaviors are different, or we may just be feeling it as we go, because we don't really have a good foundation or base to know, in a lot of cases, how we are supposed to react, how we are supposed to behave. We didn't have that perfect mother who had all their shit together, so we're trying to figure that out. We don't really understand sometimes that someone, when they're just making an observation, or even if they're trying to help you do something better, that maybe that was not coming from a place of negativity. It may be coming from a place of just trying to give you information so next time you can do that better. And I think sometimes with ACOAs, it's hard to differentiate the two, especially depending on how it's delivered, because we're very sensitive to that. So codependency is a reason. And, these will cross lines, of course, because they're so interrelated. But, as I talked about earlier, the fact that a lot of times that we are putting forth so much effort in just the day-to-day stuff, that when somebody criticizes that, it really does feel like, Jesus freaking Christ, I am trying my best here. And, it's just never enough. Because the little things for us in some cases can take the biggest effort. And it really feels like just such a huge come down on you when you are putting forth so much effort, if someone criticizes that effort. Because, for a lot of folks, it's just normal things just come naturally, and you've done it for years. And, with us, we're not starting at ground zero in a lot of cases. We're starting way down here, and some of us are just now getting to ground zero in our 40s, So criticism, when everything just feels like such a big effort, is really hard. And we take that very personally. And you can't help but just feel like at the end of the day that you even wonder why you even bother. It's like, because you put forth so much effort, and it feels like it's unappreciated when someone looks for the bad parts of that you may not have pulled off quite 100%. But our intentions are always perfection, and that leads into the next reason that criticism is tough for us, which is perfectionism. And I hit on this also in videos before, but we're very hard on ourselves. We have such a high standard for ourselves. We're not that way with other people. We let other people be human. I said this before, but with us, that's not acceptable. Unfortunately, for many of us, I won't say all, but for ACOAs, anything less than perfect or less than, doing things 100% all the time is hard for us to stomach. And, we're so hard on ourselves. We're already probably picking all the things that we're doing wrong apart. And if someone else makes an observation that kind of corroborates what we're already potentially feeling, and it sets off that bully that we have in our head already, which kind of lends itself into another reason why criticism is so hard, is, we do have that self-critic in our head, that asshole, I call mine, that is going to talk trash to you for days for any little thing that you didn't measure up to. And it's going to make you feel like you're this tall. It's hard. We do it. That's something that I feel like ACOAs, we are perfectionists, but we also take ourselves very seriously sometimes. And we're very hyper-aware, which is another reason why criticism's a little tougher for us, is we're constantly trying to read people for how they perceive us, how do we need to react to those people. Generally, we are trying to get the lay of the land for protection, because we've had to in the past. We've had to be able to get really good at reading people, because growing up early on, you may have had an abusive father. You may have had a very touchy person that you really had to walk on eggshells around. So you're very hyper aware to people, people's mannerisms, their words. You are more aware and more sensitive to that than anyone else around you. And that's good in some ways, but probably today in the environments that we are in, it makes it very tough. And we pick up on criticism probably more so than the average people. And, and I can talk a little bit about maybe some examples. I've really worked very hard since my 20s. And I will say that, the criticisms in my marriage early on, especially when I was younger and immature, it put a really tough wedge in my marriage, because I perceived my husband as very judgmental of not just me, but of other people. I have a very, coming from my background, I have a very high sensitivity to people who are judgmental, and I dislike people who are judgmental very badly. I can't help it, because I am super sensitive to other people's feelings, because maybe I just realize I try to put myself in the position of other people a little too much, even, and even put how they feel in certain situations over my own feelings to some point sometimes, and I will go out of my way to accommodate other people in detriment to my own feelings even sometimes. But so I realize how hard criticism can be, especially as I talked about, in my marriage, I had no clue what a good marriage looks like. I did tried very hard. I wanted a good life so bad, and so when I was we moved into a house and we were going to fix it up. It was really bad shape, and I was very excited about going and picking out paint colors for it. And he was like, "Well, do you really want to go with color? We really want to go with neutrals." And I was wanting to go with colors, and I got really bent out of shape because it seemed like, he was questioning all of my design choices, or he would ask his mom, and I would be like, well, you don't trust my judgment on anything. You always go to your mom. And, so every little thing like that over time really started putting a wedge in how I felt about him. And I don't know if you guys even feel that. It's like if you were supposed to have done something and you didn't do it, and you kind of felt bad because you just kind of slipped through. And, if he had noticed that and brought it up, then, I would just add that to the list. In like a professional setting, an example, I guess, is actually, unfortunately, not too long ago. We had a pretty strict dress code, and as part of a morale boosting effort by the management, they decided to allow us to start wearing jeans on Fridays. And being kind of a professional person, I was like, well, I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to continue to wear the professional dress. But one Friday, I was running late. I threw on a pair of jeans and went into work. And they were, I'm kind of a jeans connoisseur anyway, but they were a kind of a high-end jean. And you know how hard it is to find jeans these days that don't have some type of fray or distress to them. And I had on pants underneath, leggings underneath. And about, 11 o'clock that day, we got this team email. It wasn't just to me, about how we needed to not wear jeans that were raggedy and frayed, and really raggedy and frayed for these jeans, I felt like was kind of a stretch. It pissed me off. So there was the criticism. It wasn't toward me directly, but I knew, because I was the one that had them on that day. And it pissed me off that he sent a mass email, that he didn't just call me in and say, that's probably, not ideal with this jean policy to not wear that kind, if that's okay. I probably would have taken it a little better, but since the email was sent to the entire department, and the entire department pretty much knew that I was the one that had on the jeans that had a little bit of a distress to them, it sent me off. It sent me off for a couple of days, actually. I got pissed over it. And then I went straight after work, and I bought, about 10 pair of jeans, and I wore denim every Friday from that moment forward, because one, I'm like, well, I was going to be professional, and I wasn't even going to do jeans on Friday. And you went in and you instead of sending me a personal email telling me not to wear these jeans, you informed the entire department. So there were several things going on in this scenario that really triggered me that day. And, it's tough. And you don't want to go into that type of anger, or, and then also, not only did I get irritated at it, I got a little stubborn and kind of pissy about it. Not directly, but it was kind of my own rebellion that I only knew about, right? But, I think that goes back to, we try so hard. I was trying hard to be professional, and by not even adopting the policy to start with. And then the very time that I did, that I kind of got a little slap on the wrist for it. That's an example of that one. So, I feel you. These, in this world too, where everyone seems to be a critic online, it can be very hard. It can be challenging. And especially when you feel like you're trying so hard, and you feel like, even so, and I think another thing that we struggle with is the things that people tend to be critical about sometimes. Our baseline for things that really matter at the end of the day, and the things that other people tend to care about, we kind of have this mentality of, you don't sweat the small shit, and really so much to us is small shit. And, just given that, maybe in our lives that, we were in a war zone, and we may have been felt like our lives were in danger, our mom or someone's life was in danger, and we lived that way for so long that a lot of the things like the loaf of bread, or maybe we didn't put the lid back on the toothpaste, or we didn't squeeze the toothpaste from the bottom up, or some of the things that people criticize us over and get bent out of shape over are things that we're just like, well, I'm alive today, and I wasn't shot at, or I didn't have to leave the house at 3:00 in the night and get ready for school in the woods. Which, I think people don't understand that for us, a lot of times the things that people get critical over just really don't even hit our radar of things that we need to be obsessing about, or things that we should actually care about. Because for us, so much, like I said, is small shit. And that one for me is hard. And it was the hardest one, I think, for me to work through and get over, because especially younger, and maybe this one is geared more toward my younger ACOAs who are really finding their way in the normal world and trying to fit in. I wrote a song back in 2001, 2002, or somewhere in there, called I Can Handle Crazy, because we can. I think the normal stuff we do struggle with. So, that's going to be a tough one for you. So highlighting all of these things that we struggle with on criticisms, I try in these videos sometimes to give you some things that you can do to help you get over them, or springboard yourself into a better position to be able to handle criticism. But, this one is not that easy, because so much of what we tie our worth to, unfortunately, is based on others' opinions of us. And at the core, whether you're a codependent, whether you don't sweat the small shit, whether you are a perfectionist, all of these things that I've talked about, it comes to our baseline of feeling good about ourselves, and unfortunately wanting the approval of others. And I think just to say, get a thicker skin, don't take yourself so seriously, silence that critic in your head, are all of the mantras that you'll hear from the gurus, right? And with ACOAs, it's just not that damn simple. And it's just not. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work and a lot of baby steps and a lot of frustration, and being 40 and still dealing with it. It's not something that you just snap your fingers one day and criticism just does not matter to you anymore. And, being in the entertainment industry even, you've got to develop a thick skin, because everyone is a critic. If you are doing well, then for a lot of others, then that's perceived as there is a very big mindset out there today that if someone's doing well, that for some reason that you're taking success away from them. There's this shortage mentality that that I need to pull you down in order for me to do well. And unfortunately, as ACOAs, we tend to bring people like that into our lives as well. We bring insecure people into our lives that for some reason feel like by tearing you down, that it makes them feel more. And, that's a place you can start, is by at least identifying who those people are. Because if you're being criticized by someone a lot, that problem's not you, honey. That problem is them. And, we own our shit usually. We tend to not deflect. There are factions of the ACOA community who tend to put blame on everyone else and who have a hard time letting go of what's been done to them. But in a lot of cases, too, we own our stuff. We know, and we are hyper aware of our own faults, to a fault. But you need to look at the folks who are doing the criticizing. And Brene Brown has a great book talking about this, and I will see if I can find the exact name because I've read several by her, and I don't know specifically which one addresses this one in particular. But, she has a list of people that matter, that she will take criticism from. And if you're not on that list, then don't even. Basically, she's not going to go through and read all the comments on a post on a YouTube video or whatever. She has a handful of people that she values their opinion because she knows that where their opinions are coming from is not criticism in a harmful way. It's in a place where we're trying to help you do better, be better, and that's the value of criticism when it's done right. It's constructive. It's done in a way to help you be better, like like the lighting in my videos, or because I have a microphone in the shot or whatever. For me, the sound quality, or somebody makes a suggestion about how to improve the sound quality or whatever in a video. And two, you have to understand what your intent was with it. Were you trying to do a video that looked perfect, that sounded perfect, that didn't have a microphone in the shot? For me, I don't care. That's not why I'm doing the videos. So if someone's making comments about the videos, about their quality, about the sound, about, I would do these on my phone probably and just be done with it. But, because I feel like the information is a lot more valuable than how it looks. So, the weight that I put on criticism of the video itself is going to be a lot less. And I think that's what we have to try to decide for ourselves is what were we trying to do, and what criticism is valuable to be better, and what criticism is just coming from a place of that scarcity mindset that is trying to make us small because they want to be big. And just because people just feel the need these days to be critical, and start weeding those people out of your life. If my husband, and I'm not going to say one way or the other what his deal was, we were both coming out of really, he had been divorced twice already, and had a lot of baggage, and I came out of that home life, and we were both probably not in the best place in the world to be starting a brand new relationship. We both probably had hang-ups. And, when you are looking at a partner or a spouse and you are ACOA, now you are going to be prone to bringing assholes into your life, and you just are. I'm not going to call my husband an asshole. Please don't think that I'm inferring that, because again, my relationships are private. He and I are really good friends. What we have to learn about ourselves is having the radar for the types of people we're bringing into our lives. Do a little bit of detective work, just a little bit of digging to find out truly what the intent, what the motives are behind it. If it's people that are in your life that you care about, especially, because that's the people that hurt us the most, and that's kind of goes back to my point of, some people we're going to care about more than others, and that's going to be from your critical parents, possibly. That's going to be from your spouses. That's going to be from your siblings. It's going to be from people in your circle of friends, co-workers, bandmates. God, I know there are a lot of folks that in my audience out there, because I do so many things, that there are people that are going to matter and that are going to carry more weight when criticism comes from them. And please look at the intent behind it, and try to gauge whether it is someone coming from that scarcity mindset of that place of insecurity in themselves by needing to put you down to feel good about themselves, because that's a lot of it. We do have that tendency to bring those folks into our lives, and that's, again, it's not about you. Look at your standards for yourself. I don't think there's anything wrong with having good standards for yourself and wanting to be the best person that you can be. At the same time, you have to give yourself the same kind of leeway that you would give your best friend. That bully, that critic in your head, you need to start replacing that person with a version of yourself that would be your best friend. That would be the parent that you should have had, that would be more encouraging, that would be more tolerant of figuring things out. And I'm not going to call that failures, because, and by doing things, you're learning. And you learn many times more about how not to do something with your efforts than you ever learn on how to do things. But eventually you figure it out. And you have to be patient with yourself. Again, we're so hard on ourselves. And you just have to be more relaxed about when you don't do things exactly the way you wanted to right out of the gate. And I think patience and just being soft with yourself, your words, being kinder to things that you're just trying to figure out, and not be resentful that maybe that you may not have the base that some people have. And if you're listening to this and you're with someone that is ACOA, just understand that your words matter. All of us need to be more cognizant of how our words matter. How we say things matter at the end of the day, because you don't know where people are in their lives at this particular moment in time. Our words, we need to be more mindful to lift people up and understand that that is better than criticizing people and being petty. We are all prone to be bullies sometimes, and we need to check ourselves in this world where it's so easy to just throw stuff out there without any kind of filter. Just be more mindful of it, and try to work on that perfectionism side of ourselves and taking ourselves so seriously. Things that I have done to try to buffer that when I'm feeling very insecure about something, or when I'm walking into a situation where I feel like I'm outside of my comfort zone, which I've forced myself to be in so many cases over the last 3 or 4 years, is trying to develop a sense of humor about it. Making a joke about it, making a joke about myself, and throwing things out there, where my hair might not look perfect, I've got a ponytail and I don't have to have all the hair and all the makeup. And by allowing ourselves to do that sometimes, that it's healthy, instead of presenting the best face forward all the time. You just put a lot of extra stress on yourself that you don't really need to, because unfortunately, all the external criticism, which is kind of more about what this video is about, is nothing in comparison to the criticisms that we have of ourselves. And generally, the outside criticisms are validating the inside criticisms. Just keep that in mind. And when you are being critical of yourself, I want you to start writing those things down. I want you to keep an inventory of the criticism that you are facing from yourself, because probably you're going to find a match with the outside criticism that you took so hard. It's probably going to match up with some that you already have that are probably a lot worse. And just recognize them, identify them, and I would challenge you to find an alternative phrase to replace that with. You're not good at this. Well, you're not good yet, but you will be. The first step in anything is recognizing that sometimes it starts here. And identifying those and coming up with an alternative phrase and checking yourself, or eventually to where that default criticism will someday be the more encouraging best friend version of that is huge, guys. Very long video, but this one, I feel like my friends in my ACOA community they really have a hard time with this, and it causes so much suffering. So I would love to hear your thoughts. I would love to hear how criticism affects you. I would love to hear if you could help anyone in our community, anyone on this Facebook page or YouTube channel. How have you dealt with criticism? What do you feel has been something that you have been able to do to help yourself? Share that, please. Thank you so much for your time, and I hope this has been helpful. Thank you very much.